and welcome to another Wolftime gaming video. Today I'm going to be painting up some Star Trek Adventures figures from Modiphius to use in the role-playing game that they have. I've had these sat in a drawer for over a year and I've finally got time to actually get to them and get them painted. I've not been sure what sort of style I've wanted to go for, but essentially I'm going for the first contact, late DS9 style uniform with that grey top and like the colour undershirt. In looking at the miniatures, they are absolutely fantastic. There's so much detail, but they are very, very small, so I'm going to have to play around with them a little bit to try and get the look I want. For those of you who don't want to wait till the end of the video to actually see the finished product, here they are. I think they look absolutely fantastic done. Before we get started on the paint scheme though, as usual, let's get that kettle on. So the first step, as usual with any of my sort of videos, is a base coat. To do that, all you need to do is grab your Games Workshop spray. I've used Grey Sear. Sprayed the whole of the miniature with this, and this allows us to use the contrast paints because it's a very thin primer essentially, and it's nice and light, so you get some of the lighter areas show up really nicely when you use the contrast paints. You don't have to use the Games Workshop sprays, there are other sprays available, but I really like this one, and also the Wraithbone as well, which is sort of a creamy look rather than a grey, but I think they work really well, especially when you're trying to get some of the high detail that you've got in these sort of miniatures. Moving on from there, the first actual colour we're going to be doing is Contrast Black Templar. Again, this is a Games Workshop paint. It's a really thin paint, and all you need to do is pile it on there, get it really thick on there, and you as soon as you put it on, you start to think, oh no, it's going on a bit thick, but don't worry, because this, what it does is pull away from all the raised areas and give you a really nice edging sort of a look. I do apologise for how dull this video is at this point. It does brighten up, I promise, like this, so you can actually see some of the light grey areas on that black I was just talking about, and it's fantastic. So the undershirt is the next step on all three sort of divisions, tactical and command and science and medical and that. The first one I'm doing here is the command one, which is the Blood Angels red, for another contrast paint from Games Workshop that drops into the recesses really nicely. Unfortunately, I haven't got a yellow contrast paint, so I've actually had to go old school and use a base paint, which again I've used a Citadel paint, but this time I've used Avalanche Sunset. It's a really nice sort of bright goldy yellow colour, and it's perfect for that tactical or security or even engineering, which is what I've done with these. You'll also know at this point I'm actually painting around the cuffs as well, and all I'm doing there is getting a little bit of paint on the brush and drawing a line. If you mess this up, don't worry, because you can go back over with a little bit of the Black Templar just to neaten it up, which I actually do later on as well, just to tidy up those lines a little bit. The medical and science division is painted like a blue sort of a colour, and that's the layer paint. Again, not a contrast paint, but it's a really nice one called Altdorf Blue. It's a great paint, and it's perfect for this. It's not got that sort of greeny tint that you see in some of the lighting during the TV series and the films and stuff, but I think it works really well. Again, I've gone around the cuffs here and I've just painted those blue lines, so it essentially matches what you see in the films. So now it's on to the top of the uniform, which is the grey area, and to do that I've used Dawnstone, which is a layer paint from Games Workshop, again another Citadel paint. It's really good and pretty much close to what you actually see on screen. I know it's sort of a slightly darker colour, but I think Dawnstone works really well. It makes the colour of the divisions pop out quite nicely as well. Just take your time popping this one on there. You obviously have to be very careful not to go over the red areas or the division colour areas of the black, but if you do, don't worry, just get a little tiny bit of paint on your brush and just tidy that up afterwards, or at the end of the actual paint scheme. That's probably the best bet to do. So the next paint I'm actually going to be using is a black paint called Corvus Black, and this is essentially to start the eyes off. And all I'm doing is drawing a line from the bridge of the nose out to the edge of the eye. And you can leave it at that, to be honest with you, because these are so small you can't really see any other further detail. However, I'm actually going back in there with a Corax White, which is a white paint, and doing another line within the black line. So you've got a black line with a white line inside, as you can see here. I've then got a little bit of Corvus Black again with a little brush, tiny little brush called Insane Detail from Army Painter, that's absolutely fantastic, especially for things like this. And all I'm doing is putting a dot of black just in the centre of that white line, which then creates the iris. To be honest, you don't really have to do that. You can hardly see it. I mean, I've got them now sat on the shelf, all finished, and I can't see the eyes at all. So you can just leave that black line, and that'll work quite well. Whatever you do, don't do just not the normal flesh colour that we're doing here, because the face blends in too much and you sort of lose that really, and they don't look as realistic. The flesh paint I'm actually using is Contrast Gulliman Flesh. It's a really nice light bright flesh paint from Games Workshop. Again, another contrast paint, so there's no highlighting required. It just drops straight into the recesses, which looks really effective around the hands, between the fingers, around the nose and the mouth, because you don't actually have to add any other detail in there, and it drops in really nicely, and you can see straight away the eyes pop quite nicely as well. Obviously that's great for the humans or the light coloured humans, but not necessarily Andorians. To do that I've used this blue. Now you can see straight away the eyes are popping really nicely from here, as we've talked about with the human skin there. But to do this I've actually used a wash quick shade paint from Army Painter called Blue Tone. Now there are some blue paints out there that are okay, but essentially this is a really nice light one, especially if you put it on sparingly, and you can see straight away it adds all that detail in and looks fantastic against that sort of white hair as well, which I am going to be leaving as white. To do a darker sort of shade skin, what I've done is used a Contrast Wildwood, which is a really nice brown paint that drops into the recesses really nicely and adds all that shading in the same way as the Gulliman Flesh, but great for darker flesh essentially and darker skin, and looks absolutely fantastic on this engineering officer that I'm painting here. Obviously it's just around the head and the hands as well, but because we're adding in using the contrast paint, we don't have to add any shading, as I've previously mentioned, and it's really quick and easy to get a really effective paint scheme on your minis, and get them looking really effective on the table as well. So the next stage is the silver around the miniature. There's the com badge obviously on the left hand breast, and we've also got tricorders and phasers, and also phaser rifles as well, and I've painted all of those silver. Now in the films I know you've got that sort of light grey sort of a colour, and I could have gone with that, but I thought the silver really worked quite well because it's sort of a silvery grey, and you'll see why in it when we put some shading on there, but you can see how nicely it looks already. The hair is then, or one style of hair is actually painted with a colour called Xandri Dust, and this is to give a really nice blonde effect. I think it works really well, especially on this miniature. I think she looks fantastic with this sort of Xandri Dust blondie coloured hair, with a little bit of shading, as we'll come on to in a moment. Which is at this point where we've used Agrax Earthshade, which is a shade from Citadel again, and you just drop that on really sparingly around the hair, and it drops into all the recesses and looks absolutely fantastic as blonde hair. I've also used this on some of the other minis as well that you'll see at the end, but I think that the hair looks really good with that sort of shading on there. Just on the phasers and the phaser rifle, there's some black areas, namely around the tip of the actual phaser, so it just drops a little bit of Corvus black just on the edges of the phaser there. And I've also worked on the phaser rifle as well that two of the crew members have got, and I've done the same thing where I've put it just onto the edge of the phaser there, just so it sort of starts to match what you see on screen. There's a little area that's like raised just on the at the end of the barrel. There's the butt of the actual phaser rifle as well, which is into the shoulder. That's also black, and then there's a little bit of black detail just around sort of the aiming. So I don't really want to call it a sight because it's not necessarily a sight, but you get what I mean. There's a little bit of black on there as well. You just drop that onto there, and it's quite a quick and easy one to do. Now the next paint I'm going to use is a gold paint called Retributor Armor, and that's just on the edge of the com badges. Now you can see how tiny this is, and you don't necessarily have to do it, and also on the actual rank pips as well. But all I'm doing is literally just touching it. I'm not painting it on there, I'm just touching that gold paint on and letting it do its work itself. Then I'm adding some shading on because I've got that gold paint on the actual com badge now, so I wanted to do it all at once, and all I'm doing is using Null Oil. I've coated up the phasers, the tricorders, I put a little bit on the com badges, and also I've done the Andorian's hair as well, because just to add a little bit of shading in there. And once you put this on, you really start to see the effect that it has. It looks absolutely amazing. Now basing wise, you can colour this however you want. You could do them all differently, do them all the same. I've actually gone with the Xandridus because I had it out for the blonde hair we had earlier on, and I've just piled this onto there, and it's essentially to give it sort of an alien deserty feel. Then to frame the actual miniature, I advised doing a black base, just a black rim around the base, because it really does frame the miniature nicely. You can, if you want to, just paint it the same colour as the actual soil that you're going onto there, or if you're doing a deck or something like that, you could all paint it all exactly the same. But if you put that black around, it frames it really nicely, and you'll see at the end result in a moment how good that looks. Because I had the Agrax Earthshade out as well, I picked that back up and I popped a little bit onto the base just to drop into all those sunken areas, and it really adds a little bit of detail to the base, so it's all not just one block of colour, especially with these moulded bases, because you've got a few rocks and things. It drops in really nicely and looks effective. But there you have it, that's the finished miniatures, and you can see what I mean. Everything, all the bases look absolutely amazing on there. The models really do pop out. You got the command division there. You can see on the tricorders and the phasers that silver's lost a lot of its shine because we put the Null Oil on there, and it looks really good and sort of gets close to that screen accurate look. The box that the engineer's holding, I didn't really show me painting that, but essentially I painted it with Dawnstone, and same with this medical officer here, which is the same colour as we used across the top of the uniform. But I think they look absolutely amazing. Please do let me know what you think in the comments below as well. Make sure you hit that like button. I'm really pleased with these. I'm really tempted to pick up the Next Generation crew and the original series crew as well, just to give them a little bit of paint. Maybe even the Klingons, because who doesn't love a Klingon? Thanks for watching, guys. I really do. I hope you like the video. As I say, make sure you hit that like button. It really does help. Smash that subscribe button as well. Make sure you check out some of my other videos. I've got lots on there and lots coming up as well. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.